And welcome everybody. Today we have the amazing Simone Milasas with us for this special live about the foundation class in our Foundation 365 group. So if you're watching this, that's where you're finding it, or maybe on YouTube later. But thank you, Simone, for coming on to chat with us about the class and the foundation and access.
You are so welcome, Miss Emily. Thank you for having me.
So you are one of our, master lead facilitators in access consciousness. There's like Gary, we always like, how do we describe Simone? Gary Douglas and Dr. Dane here are the co-creators, and then you've been creating with them for almost 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so
I've worked a lot on the, I worked a lot on the business side of access for a very long time. When I first came along, we were in 4 countries, and I organized my first Choice of Possibilities class, and because I was like, I need more of this. You need to come out to Australia and do more of this. So I ended up contributing to that, and then I started a company in Australia for Gary and for Dane for access. And then ended up being worldwide coordinator of access, I think, for like 17, 18 years. So the business side of it is very much where I worked for a very long time until Gary and Dane, I also facilitated, but Gary and Dane asked myself and Brandon Watt if we would facilitate Choice of Possibilities. And then I started to step away, not step away. It sort of became, because it's gotten so much bigger. Like Francesca Fiorentini is the worldwide coordinator now, and I have a lot still to do with the whole business side of it, but it's different. It's probably sort of not like the smaller stuff. I love the kids in the background. That's modern day, Zooms at home.
Right, I know. I'm like, you guys can have a play date, just entertain yourselves,
Yeah. I love it.
Well, then what's interesting? So then you started facilitating Choice of Possibilities, and in Access we have like core classes. Access Bars is sort of the first core class, and then there's the foundation class, which if you take that, then you can get to a Choice of Possibilities class. But can you tell us? I love your story about you taking your first foundation class. Can you talk about? That?
Yes, I can. And so this is actually, I met Gary Douglas first, and I met him at an expo. Dane was actually in New Zealand at the time. And so I met Dane, it wasn't much later, it was like a week or two later. And I went to listen to Gary speak and was like, oh my God, this guy is amazing. Like, he was talking about everything that I ever desired in life and what I wanted to create with my business. And the way I saw it was Gary had these tools and these processes that were just quick. I wanted to change the world and invite people to a different possibility. And he was just like, boom, 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 with these tools and these questions. And I was like, whoa. So, and this was at the end of the year. It was around November. And I was like, well, what do I do now? And everyone's point of view, they said to me, oh, well, you'll have to wait till next year because the next class is foundation. Now, at that point, we used to have bars in foundation. So it was a class and you taught bars in there. And so they said the next class is foundation, includes bars, etc. And I'd had my bars run, but you have to wait till next year because nobody ever wants to do anything around Christmas time. And I was like, nobody wants to do anything around Christmas time? And I was like, I do. I've just found you. Yeah. So I said to the guy, how many people do you need in your class? And he said, I don't know, I do it for 4 people. And I went, done. And I made these calls and I went, he should have said 10 because I would have got 10. I know me. I was like, yeah. I'm demanding that I have this. So, and I rang him like within 48 hours and I went, okay, I have 4 people. And we did it between Christmas and New Year as well. Like I was like, I can't think of anything better to do. Let's do that.
It's a great time. Yeah.
I know. That's my point of view, Avoid the family. So, but anyway, the story plot thickens. And this is the piece that I know Em wants me to talk about. Is that so I showed up and I'm all excited because what I've already heard about access, I was like, yeah, this so matches the energy of what I would like to create in the world and what I'd like to be in the world. And so we have day 1 of class and I was getting angrier and angrier and angrier and angrier throughout this class. And I know that what was occurring for me was all the change that I was asking for was just going like it was there. It was so, available. But I was getting angrier and angrier because I couldn't control the amount of change that was showing up. I know that now. And I knew that then too, like I really did. And I told my facilitator at the end of the day, towards the end of the day, I walked out of class and I told him to fuck off and I've got better things to do with my life than this. And I stormed out. And he was like, okay. And then I went home, bawled my eyes out, like I was just crying hysterically, and drank a bottle of wine. Yes, a bottle. I didn't drink a glass. I drank a bottle of wine and sat there on my own crying, didn't call anyone, didn't do anything. And I was just like, oh my God, what is happening with my life, And then the next morning I went into class and I was horrible, Emily, like horrible. I came in and I had my arms crossed and, like these eyes, if you want to, you can glare at people. And I was glaring at him and he looked at me and he goes, oh, so you're back? And I went, yeah, well, I paid for it, so I'm here. And I was actually just talking to about a class I was doing this morning about this is I'm so grateful I paid for the class and that we do pay for access classes and if you look at this in your life, how many people use money as a justification to not choose something? Now it swings both ways. It's like if you pay for something, it's like you like I had paid for it, so I was coming back. That was my justification. But in truth, I was coming back because I knew it was changing every area of my life that I knew wasn't I had decided wasn't working for me. But if I hadn't paid for it, it would have been a really good justification just to go, oh, well, bye, see ya, I'm going to the beach, And then people will use, oh, I've got no money to not choose something greater. So I want to say right here, it's like, what if you stopped using money as a justification for not choosing what actually works for you? And everything at that is times a godzillion, right and wrong, good and bad, pock and pot, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. Everybody knows what the Access Consciousness Clearing Statement is on this group, right?
I would think so. But if not,
you can go to and also if not, or if you're a little bit like not really sure about it, Dane gives a brilliant description on theclearingstatement.com. So you can always go in there. That little picture was Ace. That's Emily's dog. So anyway, I walked out, drank the bottle of wine, came back and ended up staying there. And I've got to say, like, where in your life are you asking for change? You choose it and it's just in your face and it's so easy, because that's the thing that really got me. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to have to work at this for years, because I'd done a few different, courses of different things. And it was sort of like peeling the layers of the onion. Oh, you have a little bit of freedom here, but you can't have freedom in everything. Whereas what Foundation and what Access was offering was just like, boom, brand new slate. Here you are. Here you be, and I was like, what the hell? So I always refer to myself as, I think I was one of the most resistant people to ever come along to Access. And I became a facilitator because I was just like, oh my goodness, this stuff is amazing. But I will admit, I didn't facilitate for quite some time because I was so concerned that someone like me was going to show up. And I was like, what do I do if someone like me shows up in the class? How do I deal with that? And then I eventually went, I got this. Let's just go for it. Let's just leap. Let's just jump and let's just facilitate. So, yeah.
I really love that story, because most people would have, there's just so much vulnerability, and having that much resistance and everything come up and know that it's changed. I'm going to still choose this. Yeah. I'm going.
Yeah. And, I remember this guy had his class in, it was like a gated community area. And when I left, I also, I had to walk to my car and I couldn't even make it to my car. I remember going behind this wall so that no one can see me and just sitting on the grass with my back against the wall and just crying. And I was just like, what the hell is happening? But it was like that, just letting go of everything and being willing to be that vulnerable to look at, like, one of the first things that Gary and Dame ever said to me in a class, which I went, what? Was they said, what if everything that you've ever been told you found out was a lie? And I get that's what was occurring, because it was like this melting of everything that I had decided I had to be as a person, in relationships, with money, with business, with my body, with the planet, with what was right, what was wrong. It's like, it was like with my family, and then it was all just melting. And it was like, wow, what if everything that I had been told was a lie? Then the amount of choice that was available, because I don't know about you, Em, but one of the things that two things I used to do a lot, like this is 20 years ago, was go, oh, well, if I had a choice, that was the beginning of my sentence a lot.
Oh, yeah.
If I had a choice, and it was like, you do have a choice. But I was using that as an excuse. Oh, but it's not my choice, but it is your choice. Like if I had a choice, and I used to use that a lot. And the second thing I used to do a lot was I'd listen and I go, all right, well, I'm just going to go away and think about that. And those two things controlled everything, controlled nothing showing up that was greater, by going, oh, well, if I had a choice, eliminating the point of view that I had a choice. And number two, oh, I'm just going to go away and think about it. And I would go away and I'd like ponder and I'd think about it. Not cognitively working out pros and cons, but somewhere in my head working out pros and cons. And how can I control this, basically?
Well, it's funny because I'm in the middle of facilitating a foundation right now. And there's a bit in the manual that talks about people are waiting for information so they can dismiss it or judge it and walk away.
Yeah.
Which is exactly that. Give me a little bit to think about it so I can figure out.
Yes.
Yeah. Why? Yeah. Dismiss or judge it.
And like I mean, now I'm facilitating facilitators, and if I can, I will bring that up about the payment, because so many people have a point of view about money and they don't want to talk about it and they don't want to address it, or they have the point of view that, an access class is too much money. And if you have that point of view, then everyone shows up that has that same point of view. You attract that. And I'm so grateful that I paid for that class at the beginning, because I know myself. I would have done everything to resist the change that I was asking for, which is insane.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad that I paid for that class, and it was a decent amount of money so that I couldn't negate it.
I remember looking at that class price of the foundation at the time and being a stay-at-home mom and be like, how am I going to come up with the money? But you have a few access tools and questions under your belt after taking the bars class. So it's like, okay, what would it take for the money to show up? And it was amazing that I got a call like a few weeks before that class. A little guest that come in and out. You can wherever. It's okay. And I got a call from one of those companies that finds people lost money, like where you have maybe made a sale or something, and they said, hey, from the house you used to live in Illinois, we found this amount of money, and after we take our finder's fee, it was the exact price of the foundation.
Wow, that is so cool. That is so cool. And do you know how many people have a story like that?
Yeah.
It's like, and at one point, because one of the events that we have is like a 7-day event, and we used to go somewhere like, say, Costa Rica, and we'd hire out the whole resort, and everyone goes and stays there, and it's absolutely wonderful. We're still doing these 7-day events. In fact, we have one coming up really soon, and if you have the prerequisites, I highly recommend coming along. But it will be online, but what we're asking is that people sort of try and create that nurturing, not going out there into the big wide world as much as possible, as you can. And Costa Rica is a long way from Australia. And at one point I was like, I remember that there was one 7-day event before I came along, and this facilitator, the guy who was my facilitator, was showing me these photos of Costa Rica, and I'm looking through them, and I had this whole energy about me of like, oh, like this, and he goes, what's up? And I went, well, I just look at these photos and I look at it and go, I can't possibly get there, And he went, really? And I went, yeah, this one especially. And he looked at me and went, that one especially. And I went, yeah. And it was of him and Gary. And it was a photo of him and Gary in Sydney, Australia. And it had been mixed up in all the Costa Rica photos. And it was such a brilliant tool, because I went, oh. And I realized that it was like it put it into perspective. I was going, oh, I can't get there. And I was like, I can get to Sydney. That's easy. That's just a domestic flight. So then I went, oh, where am I limiting myself based on the geographical? And I started to ask for the money to show up. And when I had the money show up, and it was really random like that too, I made this sale of something in the business that I could do. And I remember sitting there and I had that money in my hand. Now, here's the key piece. what Em told you and what I'm talking about. I remember Gary said to me, if you ask for money to show up for something and the universe delivers it, make sure you spend it on what you're asking for.
Yep.
Because I could have gone, oh, I need to pay off all my bills. I need to do this. But I asked for X amount of money to show up so that I could get to this 7-day. And it was there in my hand, like cash in my hand. And I was like, okay, I need to go to the 7-day. Like the universe is gifting me. So right now it's like, what are you asking for? And what if you reached out far further than you've ever reached before? And don't try and figure out the how. Like I was having a conversation with someone yesterday and they're like, well, how are we going to do this? I'm like, it's not the how. It's like, let's choose it. And then the universe contributes. You demand of you, request of the universe, it all contributes. And then we have something different show up. It's like, let's go. That's the adventure of living.
I that same thing. I don't know if I had heard you talk about that, but when the money showed up, I was like, I'm going to honor this by using it for the foundation class, because there were a lot of other things I could have used it for. Yeah. So I love how you actually just talked about foundation, but one of the things I find interesting is, how do you explain a class like that you're saying melts everything? How do you often talk about, if someone just said, what is the foundation? Yeah.
Well, God, that manual that alone is just like gold. It's honestly, it's gold. And that will, if you keep that like somewhere, I don't know, in your bedroom, in the bathroom or wherever, or just pick it up every now and then, it's absolute gold. And it covers, because here's the thing, most people think they have a problem with something. Like if I went, what's your problem? Most people go, oh, I don't have enough money, or my relationship sucks, or I'm a really bad parent, or whatever. It's like they think they have a problem with something. So what I get foundation, it covers all of these different topics that are like these, main topics of this reality, and walks you through all these different topics of the insanity of these, like say the insanity of, I don't know, family or parenting or business, money, bodies, relationships, sex, all of it. And it walks you through it so that you can start to unravel any of the solidity you've created, any of the conclusions that you've come to. Because most people will judge themselves about all these different topics, like have a litany of judgment about it. So it starts to unravel all of that. And some will ping more than others. Yeah. And then some you'll be like, oh, okay, I'm actually pretty good in this area. And that's one thing I think most people think they have to have a problem to come along. You don't have to have a problem to come along to a foundation class. But what if you could increase, your joy, increase your ease, increase your gratitude for all of these different, they're the main areas like people look at: family, parenting, bodies, sex, relationships, money, business, that's the main topics, and there's so much more earth. Like there's so many more things, that entities that we talk about in there, but it will start to unravel that for you and give you these tools and processes in each one of those areas to create more freedom for you. And you'll get so much in the class, and you'll probably walk out of the class and go, what just happened? I have no idea what just happened, but you have the manual. And you have so many, you have your facilitator, you have people around you. Like the first class I did, and I know you know this story too, the Choice of Possibilities class I did with Gary, we had a manual. We were there for days, and I remember leaving just going, I don't know what this guy was talking about, but I feel like my whole life has just changed again, And the one note that I wrote on my manual was, I'm not as fucked up as I think I am. Because I remember Gary saying, you're not as fucked up as you think you are. And I was like, oh, okay. And I wrote that down. And I was like, I can go with that. I can lead with that. If I lead with that, now what? Now what? Now what? And for me, one of the biggest tools of access and of foundation is being in question. Because I was amazed. Like, I was like, really? I'm allowed to ask a question? Like, I don't know about you, but at school, we were always taught to have the answer. And then you had to show how you worked out you had the answer. And if you didn't get the answer the same way the teacher got the answer, you were wrong.
Yeah. You have to gather information to get an answer.
Yeah. And it was always like, you're asking too many questions. Don't ask, questions that I remember someone saying, don't ask questions you don't know the answer to. What? I was like, that's insane. And so coming along, if you look at history, Socrates spoke about being in question. All of his books are about being in question. So access consciousness, it's not a new concept, but it's a concept that we're not taught. And so I love like the tagline of access consciousness, empowering you to know that you know. And it's like empowering you to know that you know, and ask and be in question. And you're not wrong for not having the answer. In fact, you're going to create even greater if you ask questions all day, every day. More will show up for you. Yeah. So that was one of my favorite things with coming along to Access, was I can ask questions.
And how you said earlier, like actually acknowledging you have a choice. You can ask questions and then choices show up. And it's such a different way. It, like you said, it's not like it's brand new, but most people, we just don't function like that.
No. And we think too much about stuff. Like I just had an appointment with someone, you know, in about an hour after this. And it was something to do with my body. And I was like, I was like asking my body, and I could perceive my body going, let's go for a walk on the beach instead. Now, previously, I would have gone, oh, well, I can't cancel this because I've already made the appointment and da-da-da-da. And it's like, well, where am I in the computation? But I just text this woman, and because I have a session with her once a week, and she was like, that's fine, hon. Just let me know when you come back, you know. And she's totally fine. I'm totally fine. My body's happier because I just asked a question and listened to my body rather than go, oh, you have to do this because you have the appointment. And that's where I see people go, oh, if I don't really have a choice because I've already made this. Then you do have a choice. I mean, I love one of the examples Gary says is, you know, the people he did a session with, and after they'd been married for, you know, years, and he was, you know, they were having a problem with the relationship. And he said, well, when did you leave the relationship? And what they got to was before they were even married. And he was like, so why did you get married? And they went, oh, the invitations had already gone out. And it's like, wow, you got married because the invitations have gone out. But what did we choose? It's like almost like cooking a meal, right? And then you go, oh, I have to eat it because I just cooked it. No, you don't. You may have, I mean, if you notice, like when you do cook, it's like a lot of times your body will receive everything with the cooking. And then you go to eat it and you're like, I'm so not hungry anymore. You have like one bite, and you're like, I'm done. But most people go, oh, well, I have to eat it because you just spent all this time in the kitchen cooking, or I just did this. And it's like, no, every 10 seconds you can choose again. And that is one of the greatest freedoms that is not, we're not taught and we're not empowered. And thank you, Access Consciousness, for empowering us with that.
No kidding. So each week in this group, we've been talking about, without the manual, like you said, is gold. There's so much in there, but we've been pulling like one simple tool that you might hear about everywhere and then kind of break it, like talking about it a bit more. So this week is about who does it belong to? That question, who does this belong to? And everyone, I just love asking how you see that tool, how you use it, or how you facilitate with that tool, because everyone does it differently. Has a different perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually have, I just happen to have a great story for you, Emily. Well, I was just talking to Brendan, and the dog that we used to co-own together is really sick, and he can't walk at the moment, and he's not able to stand up. So we're going to put him down. And I was like, wow, that's funny, because the whole last night before going to bed, I was on my Pilates, you know, back stretcher thing. And because my body, I couldn't move my body that well at all. And I knew it wasn't mine. And I kept asking different questions about it, because I was like, and not assuming it's not yours either. I was like, okay, body, is this yours? You know, have you seriously done something, like, have we screwed up here? Or, you know, that's not the question to ask. But I was like, who does it belong to? What's going on? Asking questions. And then the whole night, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse, to the point where I couldn't, like this morning I was like, I'm not so sure I can get out of bed, I can walk. And I used some more tools, but the who does it belong to is the running theme of that, because it's not, I knew it wasn't mine. And then when I found out about this and some other things, everything just started to lighten up. And it was like, oh, and I happened to be talking about Max, our dog, this morning on a class as well, which was really interesting. And so it's how aware was I, or am I, of Max and what's going on with his body? Because we are so much more aware of everything around us than what we're willing to acknowledge. And it's so obvious. Like if you walk into a house with your family, friends, lover, whoever it is, and notice the energy straight away, and notice how you'll start to like say if someone's not doing too great, they're sad or they're frustrated or they're angry or something like that. And it's like, notice as soon as you walk in, notice what you choose, because so many people function from like this normal compression level.
Yeah.
And then you'll start to go, oh, hang on a second. I was so happy when I was driving here, but let me just rearrange myself slightly so that I can be congruent with where you're at. Mm. Rather than, what if you never ever gave up anything that you were, and you were in allowance of what this person is choosing, and you could be available, but you still remained like this, happy, infinite being that you truly be. So anytime that you are not, you have that sense of not that space, ask, who does this belong to? Like, and what are you aware of? Is this mine? Because we say 99% of our thoughts, feelings, and emotions are not ours, but in truth, that's a lie. 100% of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions are not yours. Okay, they're not yours. So ask, who does this belong to? Is this mine? And if it lightens up, it's not. And throughout the night, I was asking questions, and I kept asking, okay, is this mine? Who does it belong to? And I knew it wasn't mine. And I didn't have to, you don't have to work out whose it is. Like, it's not like, oh, this is Aunt Betty's from 1952 when she had, you don't have to work it out. But when it lightens up, but there was something else that showed up as well, but there was a few things sticking me. So I was like, what do I need to be aware of with this, in order to dissipate it? But the fact that you're aware that it's not yours, then you can change it. But if you buy everything as yours, then that's when you can't change it. And that's one of my favorite things about Access as well, is like, look at money stuff. If you get all, freaky and weird about money, ask, is this mine? And if you're willing to have a look that it's not yours, then you can change the energy of it, and you can create and choose something entirely different for you. And even starting with that question, which I love, if I was choosing my reality today, what would I choose? And you can put anything in there. If I was choosing my reality with finances, with relationships, with my body, with sex, with anything, what would I choose? Like, if I was choosing my reality today with parenting, what would I choose? Like, if you look at Em and the fact that she's, had her kids and the kid's friend walking by, someone could have chosen to be like, oh my God, I told you to stay in this room or whatever. And she's like, oh no, it's fine. You go about, whatever. And it's like, that's Em's reality with parenting. So, but that's not what everyone would like. There's this rightness and wrongness of what people go through, rather than what's your reality with parenting? Like,
Well, Anne, I love that you asked that question, because it's not like instantly you asked it in the middle of the night, all the pain was gone.
No, it wasn't.
Right. Yeah.
It was actually increasing. And I was like, okay, yeah.
But you still got like, okay, this is the beginning. I get it's not mine. And then there's all these other questions and tools to have, but it breaks that system of thinking everything is yours.
It does. Yeah. And, even after 20 years of using the tools, like last night I was looking at this going, oh my God, anything that I've decided that I've got to fix or change or anything, I'm done, because I was in so much pain. So it was really like, you know what? No, I'm not doing this. And I noticed how kids and animals are so much more willing just to go, oh, it's not mine, change, boom. And I was looking at that last night going, where am I not willing to have instantaneous change? So to me, that was another download of even further information and more that I can choose, is that instantaneous change, like just change, rather than, I don't know, crazy adults. We seem to go, well, hang on a second. It took 24 hours. That's quick enough, isn't it? Rather than, what if it took 24 seconds?
Yeah, like poof, gone.
Yeah, a nanosecond. Yeah, not even a second. 24th of a second. Is that a thing?
I guess, please. Okay. Yeah. Before we go, I would love to ask you, so now you facilitate lots of different classes. So, and foundation, you could throw in there sometimes as well, and you facilitate it a lot. What's your favorite thing about facilitating the foundation?
Oh, that's a no-brainer. The change that you see in people's worlds. And I'll tell you one quick story. And I always think of this guy, and I was living in Brisbane, and he came to a foundation class, and he walked in, he was rather old, and he'd been fighting during, the war, etc. And he was walking with a cane, and his skin was just grey. Like he looked, I was like, wow, is this guy going to die in my apartment? You know, like that's what he looked like. Sweet, sweet man, but just death was upon him, you know. And we're in the class, and about 2 days into class, I think it was the third day, he walked in and it almost makes me want to cry. He walked in without his cane and he had color back in his skin, and he looked at me and he said, Simone, he said, thank you so much. And he said, I just want to let you know I've decided to live. And I was just like, whoa. And that was such an obvious example, but that's what I love, seeing the change in people's worlds when they're just like, I can have this. I can choose something different. And it's like, yeah, you can. You can change anything. Anything.
Oh, that makes me cry. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And for all of you watching this, we'll put this up on YouTube afterwards, but please invite people. This group about the foundation is for anyone. Like, you don't have to have done a bars class. You can be brand new to figuring out what the heck is this access stuff. This is really to learn about like the change that's possible, the choices that are there, the questions you can ask. So please invite anyone to this. Dr. Dane was on in this group a week or so ago. That's pinned. This video will be pinned in announcements. Brendan Watt's going to be on next week. And these conversations are just wonderful because you have been creating with Access for so long, facilitating, and I just love to hear the stories. And there's other people there saying it brought tears to their eyes too.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for you, Em. And it's been way too long since I've hugged you. You do realize I might squeeze you too tight when I eventually do see you.
Please, I'm so ready.
You're squeal like a puppy.
Oh.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everybody, so much. And hopefully we'll see you online or soon. And if you guys have taken a foundation, Simone is facilitating a Choice of Possibilities class this weekend online that you can join from anywhere in the world.
Or if you happen to be in Brisbane, Australia, you can actually come live. I think we've got like 25 people in the room, but we're doing it at the Antique Guild in the warehouse in Brisbane. So it'd be fun to actually hug some bodies, and we've got a bunch of people online as well. So yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm excited. I love facilitating. And Simone has you have a lot of other classes and a podcast and everything, and you guys can find everything at SimoneMilasas.com and check out everything you're creating. Oh, someone's going to the COP this weekend. Yay! Yay! Thank you, Simone. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Mwah. Mwah. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.